Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to welcome world-renowned business correspondent Richard Quest to our newsroom today. We're certainly excited to have him and to delve into some of the insights that he's going to share with us. He has agreed to sit in on our first ever video broadcast from our multimedia studio today, and that is certainly going to be very exciting. Richard also met the journalists in the newsroom and certainly passed on some of his nuggets of wisdom. Richard presents Quest Means Business on CNN. He also presents CNN Business Traveller. He is in South Africa after returning from the Tourism Indaba in Durban. Richard was based on Wall Street for all of 12 years, but he has covered breaking news for 2 decades. Most interestingly, from my perspective, is that he has covered every financial crisis since Black Monday in 1987. Emerging markets, of course, like South Africa, have their own problems locally, but South Africa's debt to GDP is expected to peak at 40%. Are we doing something right, in your opinion, then?
The reason that people are not going into... it's not because there's a feeling that the US debt is questionable. Look at rates, and you see that, the US long-term rates still are way below those. So let's get rid of that canard. Okay. There's no question that is not reflected of fear. Even 2 weeks ago, when there was a question of there being a warning on US debt, long-term rates barely budge. It's still the most liquid, largest market in the world. No, of course you have done something right. Okay. You've done something right. You've had good macroprudential growth. You've had strong economic policies. But that could all change. That could all change, and what you're seeing now in the rates that are reflected, you have a prime rate of, you have a repo rate of 5.5%, you have a prime rate of 9%, you have a 10-year bond rate, 8.5%, but you have an inflation rate of 4.5%. So what's going on in the South African economy that is requiring such a premium to buy the bonds of this country? There is obviously an element of carry trade, which is boosting demand for your currency. The currency is appreciated. These are undercurrents in an economy that could be storing up troubles for the future. I don't think there's anybody who's got any doubt that South Africa is a good place to invest. I think the issues are what's next. The strength of the economy is obvious. It has been run with remarkable success over the past 15 years, post-democracy, and all the right pillars were put in place. But the question for South Africa is not what's happened in the past, it's what's going to happen in the future. The strength of the underlying economy in the future, the rise of corruption within South Africa. People talk about it in hushed tones. They're starting to talk about it in larger tones. The budget deficit, what will be done about it? The increasement entitlements, the promises made by President Zuma when he came into office to create all these new jobs. Who was going to pay for them? An increasing tax burden. Who pays for all that? Those are the issues that are reflected, I think, at the moment in the markets.
And of course, South Africa has just been admitted to the official BRICS Club. What does that actually mean for South Africa and for Africa? Is it going to help, Richard?
No. It makes absolutely not a jot of difference to anything. The truth is, of course, at one level, it gives you a badge of honour. That you are a member of the fastest growing countries in the world, economically speaking. But you're a very small member of that country, of that group. It gives you a seat at the table. And yes, BRIC countries do have certain unique problems, currency related, deficit related, and dealing with the fact large inflows of money that you're talking about because of their fast growth, handling that sort of those sort of issues. China has it, India has it, Brazil certainly has it, currency wars, all those sort of issues. But you are 4 or 5 completely economically, politically divergent cultural countries. And therefore, at best, you are sharing ideas. Where South Africa gains is because it becomes a country that places like China, possibly Russia, certainly Brazil, will want to get into, because through South Africa, they get to Africa. So that is where, but this idea that the BRICS, it's a nice badge to have on your sleeve, but it is by no means the panacea.
Obviously, South Africa has a very strong resources base, but the problem for investors is that we're tending to pull our hair out on a daily basis. In 3 days last week, gold lost all of 29%. What is the commodity picture, and is this going to be an important avenue for us investors over here, Richard?
I have always believed, first of all, gold, I always believe, is the last refuge of the bankrupt mind. And it's the last refuge of the bankrupt journalist when we start talking about gold, because gold goes up, it goes down. It moves left, it moves right. There are people who would sell their grandmother for an ounce of gold, and there are people who, like Warren Buffett, who won't hold it come what may. Gold is a useless, meaningless, completely valuable and valueless at the same time commodity. However, this is where I straddle both sides. It is crucially important, it is vital within the economic system, and whether you love it or hate it, you have to respect it. So, that's the scenario of gold. But I always remember a British finance minister saying to me once, and a CEO once saying to me once, we were talking about currency fluctuations and what effect they'd had on a particular, and he just said, you're better off not worrying about it. Look after your own business and the currency will take care of itself. And gold is in that same category. Yeah, gold fell how much?
29% in 3 days last week, then it started recovering a little bit.
It'll recover back up again. It will recover back up again because of the fundamentals. It was a reaction to Bin Laden.
Yeah.
But gold is only valuable because people believe it's valuable.
Well, thank you very much, Richard, for joining us. Some wonderful insights. I think we all learned a lot from that. You certainly have a depth of knowledge when it comes to the markets, but also these personalities that you interview. And I think that is pertinent as well when it comes to these decisions, is what are the personalities doing behind the scenes. Thanks very much for joining us, and have a great trip.